I'm glad to have you here. Please follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. That way, I can see how far my message has traveled. I never thought my own son would break my heart on a Tuesday morning, but there it was, glowing on my phone screen, like a tiny grenade waiting to explode. The December rain was coming down hard in Portland that morning. I was in my kitchen, the same kitchen where my late husband Rob and I had taught our son Daniel to make his first grilled cheese sandwich 28 years ago. The Victorian house in Irvington still smelled like the Irish soda bread I'd been baking since dawn. My name is Mia Anderson. I'm 66 years old. I've been a widow for 2 years. I was pulling the bread from the oven when my phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Daniel. I set down the hot pan and picked up my phone, my reading glasses steaming up from the heat. "Hey Mom, change of plans for Christmas. We're going to Vanessa's parents in Bend instead. You understand I read it once, twice, 3 times. The words didn't change. You understand. Not, I hope you don't mind. Not, is that okay? A statement. You understand I set the phone down carefully like it might shatter if I gripped it too hard. The bread timer was still beeping. I turned it off. The kitchen fell silent except for the rain hammering against the windows. My hands started to shake. Just a little tremor in my fingers that I couldn't quite control. This wasn't the first time Daniel had canceled on me, but it was the first time he'd been cruel about it. I walked to the window and stared out at the rain-soaked street. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was putting up Christmas lights despite the weather. 2 houses down, the Hendersons' grandkids were visiting their minivan in the driveway. Everyone had family coming for Christmas except me. I pressed my palm against the cold glass and let myself remember. 3 months ago, September, Daniel had called on a Thursday evening. "Mom, I hate to ask, but our car transmission just died. The mechanic says it's $3,200. Can you help us out? Just until my bonus comes through next month." I'd said yes without hesitation, transferred the money that same night. The bonus never came, or if it did, the money was never repaid. 6 months ago, July. A text this time. "Mom, Vanessa needs a medical procedure. Insurance won't cover it. $8,500. I know it's a lot, but we're desperate." Yes. I'd always said yes. 9 months ago, April. Daniel showed up at my door, coffee in hand. That smile that reminded me so much of Rob. "Mom, we're investing in a food cart business. Portland's street food scene is booming. We need $15,000 for licensing and equipment. This could change our lives." I'd written the check right there at my kitchen table. 12 months ago, January, right after Rob's first anniversary. "Mom, we got hit with a tax penalty. IRS says we owe $12,000. Can you help? We'll pay you back as soon as we file our amended return." I'd been so deep in grief over Rob that I barely remembered transferring the money. But I had. Of course I had. He was my son, my only child. What else was I supposed to do? I turned away from the window and walked to Rob's study. It's what I still called it. Even though he'd been gone for 2 years, his books were still on the shelves, his reading glasses on the desk, his jacket hanging on the back of the door. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out the leather-bound ledger he'd given me on our 35th wedding anniversary. Inside the front cover, Rob's handwriting in blue ink. "Mia, keep track of everything. Money promises patterns. Trust people, but verify. I love you always." Our Rob had been a high school history teacher for 33 years. He'd seen students try to manipulate their way out of consequences more times than he could count. Patterns, he used to say, "People think they're being clever, but they always leave patterns." I flipped through the ledger. Numbers in neat columns, dates, descriptions. January 15th, 2024, $12,000. Tax penalty, April 3rd, 2024, $15,000. Business investment, July 22nd, 2024, $8,500 medical procedure. October 8th, 2024, $3,200 car transmission total, $3,700, but something nagged at me. I was forgetting something. I opened my laptop and searched my email for Daniel Money there. December 28th, 2023, right after Rob's first anniversary when I could barely function from grief. Mom, I know this is terrible timing, but Vanessa's student loans are crushing us. $18,000. I wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. I promise we'll pay you back. I transferred it the same day. I barely remembered doing it. New total, $56,700. My stomach churned. That was more than I'd thought. Much more. But wait, I searched deeper. Found bank statements from 2023. August 2023, $6,800. First last deposit for new apartment. June 2023, $4,500 down payment on replacement car after Vanessa's totaled vehicle. Another $11,300 running total, $68,000. I sat back in Rob's chair, my heart pounding. $68,000 in 18 months. But there was more, wasn't there? I logged into my bank account. The joint checking account Daniel and I had opened for emergencies. I scrolled through the transaction history. Withdrawals I didn't recognize. March 2024, $2,000. May 2024, 3 hours, $500. August 2024, $200. October 2024, $500. All labeled ATM withdrawal or debit purchase. All made by Daniel. Another $14,800. Grand total, $82,800. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the desk. That was more than Rob's first year's salary as a teacher. That was more than my parents' entire life savings when they'd immigrated from Ireland in 1960. That was theft. No, not theft. I'd given it willingly, hadn't I? My phone buzzed. I jumped. A voicemail notification, but not a new one. One I'd somehow missed, buried in my notifications from August 15th, 4 months ago. I pressed play. Daniel's voice strained and urgent. Mom, it's me. I need to tell you something important about Vanessa. Call me when you get this, but don't mention this to her, please. It's really important. Just call me. The message ended. I stared at the phone. August 15th. I'd been in Seattle visiting my sister. There had been a scare with her heart, a false alarm, but I'd stayed a few extra days. By the time I got back to Portland on the 18th, Daniel had texted, "Hey Mom, how was Seattle? Want to grab dinner acting completely normal like nothing was wrong?" I'd assumed the voicemail wasn't important. Never followed up, never asked. Now, sitting in Rob's study, I played it again. About Vanessa. Don't mention this to her. It's really important. What had Daniel wanted to tell me I didn't sleep that night? I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain. Rob's side of the bed was empty. It had been empty for 2 years, but that night it felt vast like an ocean between us. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table as dawn broke gray and wet over Portland. I needed to know, not guess, not assume no. But I couldn't just confront Daniel, not yet. If I was wrong, I'd destroy our relationship over nothing. If I was right, well, I needed proof. I needed to test him. At 9:30, I sent a text. "Sweetheart, can we talk? I need to discuss the money I've lent you over the past year. Want to grab coffee today?" I watched the screen. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, nothing. An hour passed, 2, 3. Finally, at 12:47 p.m., "Super swamped at work today, Mom. Can it wait till this weekend?" My heart sank. If the money meant nothing, if he'd planned to pay it back, he would have said yes immediately. Wouldn't he? I typed back. "It's important, honey. Just 30 minutes. There's a stump town near your office." Another hour of silence. Then my phone rang. Daniel calling. I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi, sweetheart. Mom." His voice was tight, strained. "What's this about?" "I just wanted to talk about the money. Work out a repayment schedule." Repayment. His voice rose. I'd never heard him yell at me before. "Mom, you gave us that money. You never said anything about paying it back." "Daniel, I said I'd help you, exactly. Help. That's a gift, not a loan. There's a difference." My hands started shaking again. "I assumed you understood." Assumed. He laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. You assumed wrong. I heard a woman's voice in the background. Vanessa. I couldn't make out of the words. Then Daniel said, "Hang on." A click. Suddenly, I was on speakerphone. Mia. Vanessa's voice smooth, controlled like honey over steel. I couldn't help overhearing. I'm a little confused. Are you saying you want the money back? I just think we should discuss because when you gave it to us, you said, "Of course I'll help." Those were your exact words, Mia. Of course. Not "I'll loan you this or pay me back later." You said, "Of course I'll help my son." Had I tried to remember exact conversations from months ago. The words blurred together. I wanted to help, but I expected. You expected what Vanessa's voice had an edge now, sharp, that we'd read your mind, Mia. We're family. Daniel is your only child. When you give money to family, that's a gift. That's love. Isn't that how it works? I felt the conversation slipping away from me, like sand through my fingers. I just think we should talk in person. I think what we should do, Vanessa interrupted, is give you some space. You're clearly going through something. Grief over Rob. Maybe it can make people confused about what they said, what they meant. It's okay. We understand. I'm not confused. Daniel, we should let your mom rest. She's had a hard couple of years. The line went dead. I sat holding my phone stunned. What just happened, I'd called to discuss repayment. I'd ended up being told I was confused, grieving, unreliable. That was gaslighting. I knew it intellectually. I'd read about it, seen it in movies, but experiencing it felt different, like the ground had shifted under my feet and I couldn't quite find my balance. 2 hours later, I was making dinner. Shepherd's pie, Rob's favorite. I still made it sometimes, even though there was no one to eat it but me. My phone buzzed. A bank alert. Transaction declined. Someone had attempted to withdraw $6,000 from the joint emergency account. Account holder, Daniel Anderson. Time 2. 14 p.m. Reason for decline, insufficient funds. My hands went cold. I'd moved most of the money out of that account last month. Just a feeling. Instinct. Now I was glad I had. Daniel had tried to withdraw $6,000 right after I'd asked about repayment. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A text from Daniel. "You know what Mom, Vanessa, and I talked? We're not coming for Christmas." My breath caught. Another text. "Or Thanksgiving next year." Vanessa's family actually wants us there. They don't guilt trip us about money or make us feel like we owe them something for every little bit of help. I stared at the screen, blinked, read it again. A third text appeared. "Enjoy your big empty house. Maybe you can fill it with all that money you're so obsessed with counting." The words hit like a slap. This wasn't my son. This wasn't the boy who used to leave me drawings that said, "Best mom in the world." This wasn't the young man who'd sobbed in my arms at Rob's funeral. This was someone else. Someone cruel. Or maybe this was who he'd always been, and I'd just never seen it. I set down my phone, turned off the stove, walked upstairs to Rob's study, opened my laptop. The bank portal loaded slowly. I watched the spinning wheel, my heart steady, now calm. I'd spent 2 years being the grieving widow, the understanding mother, the person who said yes to everything because what else did I have? I was done being that person. I pulled up my accounts. 7 of them had Daniel's name as joint owner. Joint checking, emergency fund, $2,847 remaining. College savings opened when Daniel was born, $127,000. Investment account stocks and bonds for his future, $89,000 money market account. Steady deposits over 30 years, $56,000 certificate of deposit number 1. Matured marked Daniel's wedding fund. $38,000 certificate of deposit number 2. Marked Daniel's first house fund. $37,000 trust fund. set to mature at Daniel's 40th birthday. $98,000 total value, 4478, 84747, 847 money. My parents had left me when they died in 2010. Money from Rob's teacher pension and life insurance money from selling the rental property we bought in 1995 for $180,000 and sold in 2023 for $650,000. 40 years of careful saving of doing without, so we could build something. All of it accessible to Daniel, all of it at risk. My hands didn't shake this time. They were perfectly steady as I clicked through each account. Account number 1, manage access. Remove Daniel Anderson. Confirm. Transfer remaining balance to new account. Mia Anderson, sole owner, $2 receipt 47 secured. Account number 2, manage access, remove. Daniel Anderson, confirm transfer funds, $127,000 protected. Account number 3, remove access. Transfer funds, $89,000 safe. One by one, I closed him out. It took 37 minutes. When it was done, I sat back and looked at the screen. Total secured $447, $847. I see nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a hollow space where my son used to be. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. See you soon, BTW. Need to grab some stuff from the garage. I stared at the message. See you soon. After telling me to enjoy my empty house after the cruelty after everything. He didn't know yet. Didn't know the accounts were empty. He was planning to come here to grab stuff from the garage or to check if I'd transferred more money after his tantrum. I typed back my fingers steady. Okay, let me know when. No response. I closed my laptop and looked around Rob's study. His books, his papers, his life carefully preserved, like a museum. I'm sorry I whispered to the empty room. I'm sorry I let it get this far. I knew what Rob would say if he were here. He'd said it 100 times to struggling students. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'd been fooled 82 times. $82,000 worth of fool, but not anymore. Thursday morning, 6:45 a.m. The doorbell rang, not a polite single ring. Insistent over and over, ring, ring, ring. I was in my robe making coffee. I went to the window and looked out. Daniel's Subaru Outback in my driveway. He was on the porch pounding on the door. Mom, I know you're in there. Open the door. My heart started racing, not from fear, from adrenaline. I grabbed my phone and texted Helen Morrison, my best friend who lived 2 blocks away. Daniel's here. Seems very angry. Can you come over just in case? Helen's response was immediate. On my way. Do not let him in until I'm there. I went downstairs but didn't open the door. Spoke through it, keeping my voice calm. Daniel, it's 6:45 in the morning. What did you do? His voice was ragged. Raw. The account's mom. They're all gone. They're not gone. I moved them. You moved what? That's my money, my college fund, my inheritance. I took a breath. No, Daniel, it's my money. It was always my money. Silence for just a moment. Then you promised that was mine. You told me since I was a kid that was for my future. Show me where I promised Daniel. Show me one document, one legal paper, one contract that says any of that money belongs to you. I heard him breathing hard through the door. You can't just take it back. I didn't take anything back. I protected what's mine. A car door slammed. I looked through the peephole. Helen was getting out of her Honda, wearing her raincoat, carrying her cell phone, visibly. Daniel saw her. His shoulders sagged slightly. Mom, please. Can we talk inside? No, Mom. Not until you're ready to be honest with me. I am being honest. Then tell me what you wanted to warn me about in August. The voicemail about Vanessa. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel's face go white. You listened to that. I just found it. What did you want to tell me, Daniel? He looked at Helen, then back at the door. Not here. Not like this. Then when another car pulled up, a Mercedes C-Class, new silver, I didn't recognize it until Vanessa got out. She was wearing a designer coat I'd never seen before. Camel-colored cashmere Gucci bag on her shoulder, hair blown out perfectly despite the early hour in the rain. She walked up my driveway like she owned it, like she owned everything. Mia, not Mom. She'd never called me Mom. Not once in 5 years. We need to talk. Helen stepped closer to my porch. Everything okay here, Mia? It's fine, Helen. Thank you for coming. Vanessa's eyes flicked to Helen, assessing, dismissing, then back to the door where I stood. Mia, you need to open this door and let us in. We're family. This is ridiculous. There's nothing to talk about, Vanessa. Her smile was cold, sharp. Actually, there's quite a bit to talk about. You just stole $300,000 from your son. I didn't steal anything. That money was always mine. You told Daniel it was his college fund, his inheritance. You can't just change your mind because you're having a tantrum about Christmas. The word tantrum hit like a match to kindling. I opened the door not to let them in, but to face them. I stood in my doorway in my robe, my gray hair uncombed, no makeup. 66 years old and done with being polite. I'm not having a tantrum, Vanessa. I'm protecting myself from being used. Your voice rose, genuine outrage or perfect acting. We're family. Daniel is your only child. How dare you? How dare I? What ask where $82,000 went? Ask why my son tried to withdraw $6,000 after I mentioned repayment. Ask why you're coaching him on what to say to me. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. Coaching. I have no idea what the yes you do. I heard you on the phone yesterday telling him what to say, how to make me sound crazy. You are sounding crazy, Mia. Grief can do that. It's been 2 years since Rob died, but maybe you need more help processing. Don't. My voice came out like steel. Don't you dare use my husband's death to manipulate me. For just a second, Vanessa's mask slipped. I saw something underneath, something cold and calculating and absolutely furious. Then she turned to Daniel. Get in the car. We're leaving. Vanessa, now Daniel. And he went like a trained dog. No protest. No looking back. Vanessa turned to face me one more time. You're making a huge mistake. That money should be Daniel's. He needs it. And if you don't give it back, she paused, let the threat hang in the air. Well, don't say I didn't warn you. She got in her car, Daniel in the passenger seat staring straight ahead. They drove away. Helen came up onto the porch, put her arm around me. Inside now, and we're calling a lawyer. Friday morning, 10:00 a.m. Patricia Walsh's office was on the 8th floor of a modern building downtown Florida to ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. Everything about it said competence, leather chairs, organized bookshelves, framed degrees from Louis and Clark Law School. Patricia was 45, Irish-American like me, wearing a sharp gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. But her handshake was warm, her eyes kind. Mrs. Anderson, please sit. Tell me everything. I did. I told her about the $82,000 the joint account Daniel had tried to drain, the cruel texts, the voicemail from August that Daniel had never followed up on. Patricia took notes on a yellow legal pad, her handwriting quick and precise. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me seriously. Mrs. Anderson, what your son did is textbook financial exploitation. But I gave the money willingly under false pretenses. He lied about what the money was for. That's fraud. However, she paused. Legally, it's complicated. You'd need to prove he knew he was lying, that he never intended to use the money as stated. Without documentation, that's difficult. My heart sank. So there's nothing I can do. I didn't say that. The joint account is clearer. He withdrew money without your knowledge or permission. That's easier to prove. But Mrs. Anderson, Patricia leaned forward. That voicemail, I need to tell you something about Vanessa. What do you think he wanted to say? I don't know. I'd like to find out. With your permission, I'd like to hire a private investigator, former FBI. He specializes in white-collar crime and family financial exploitation. He can look into Vanessa's background legally and discreetly, see if there's a pattern. I hesitated. That feels invasive. Helen, who'd come with me for support, spoke up. Mia, she threatened you on your own porch. She's not playing fair. Why should you? I thought about Vanessa's cold smile, the designer coat, the Mercedes I didn't know they had. Okay, I said, do it. Patricia picked up her phone. Thomas, it's Patricia Walsh. I have a case for you. 1 week later, Friday, December 13th, Thomas Fletcher sat across from me in Patricia's conference room. He was 52, fit, with graying hair and the kind of eyes that saw everything. The folder in front of him was thick. Mrs. Anderson, I'm going to be direct. What I found is concerning. He opened the folder. Vanessa Marie Taylor, born Scottsdale, Arizona, April 12, 1989. She's 35 years old. I nodded. I knew all this. Well, you might not know she was married before Daniel from 2016 to 2018 to a man named George Fletcher. My stomach dropped. Another marriage. Yes. George Fletcher was 71 years old, retired real estate developer worth approximately $3 million. I couldn't speak. They were married for 18 months. George died in August 2018, left Vanessa $180,000 in his will. That's he was 71 and she was 27. Yes. Thomas pulled out another document. George's adult children contested the will. They claimed Vanessa had exerted undue influence, that she'd isolated him from his family, manipulated him into changing his will. They even suggested she'd been controlling his medications. Oh my God. The case settled out of court. Vanessa got the $180,000, signed a non-disclosure agreement. No admission of wrongdoing on either side. Thomas pulled out printouts from dating websites. 6 months after George died, Vanessa moved to Portland, joined multiple dating sites. Her profiles were strategic. He showed me her Match.com profile about me, entrepreneur seeking successful professional. I value family education and building a secure future together. Interests, fine dining, art galleries, cultural events, travel, looking for family-oriented professional 30-45, who values tradition and legacy. These are signals Thomas explained. She's advertising for men with family money. Family-oriented typically means close to parents. Values legacy means inheritance. I felt sick. She found Daniel on OkCupid in March 2019. She messaged him first. Thomas showed me the message. Hi, I noticed in your profile you mentioned your family's connection to education. My father was a teacher too. I'd love to hear more about your family's legacy. Daniel mentioned Rob in his profile. Yes, and Mrs. Anderson. Thomas pulled up his laptop. This is Vanessa's search history, obtained legally through Daniel's shared cloud account. He showed me Google searches dated March 10, 2019. Robert Anderson, Portland teacher, obituary. Grant, high school teacher, died cancer. Anderson family, Portland, Irvington. Teacher pension, Oregon, survivor benefits. My vision blurred. She researched Rob before she even met Daniel. Yes, and found his obituary, which mentioned his pension life insurance, and that he was survived by his wife, Mia, and son, Daniel. She also found your parents' obituary from 2010, which mentioned they left an estate. She knew how much money we had before she sent that first message. Yes. Patricia spoke up. There's more. Mia Thomas found something else. Thomas pulled up screenshots of text messages, a group chat, 5 women. Vanessa is one of them. They call themselves ladies who lunch. He showed me the messages. Vanessa Portland guy moved $15K yesterday. Total bleeding heart. Mention his dead dad and he'll give you anything. Jessica C. Lal. Mine just bought me a Mercedes. Told him it was our car for our future. Madison PHX. I'm stuck. His mom keeps asking questions. What do I do, Vanessa? Easy. Make the mom the enemy. Tell him she doesn't respect your marriage, doesn't trust his judgment, wants to control him. He'll choose you over her every time. Brittany Den Genius. Also, did anyone read Victoria's new timeline guide? Inheritance acceleration? It's perfect. I couldn't breathe. Inheritance acceleration. Thomas nodded grimly. It's a term they use making inheritance happen faster through isolation manipulation, or what Mrs. Anderson, I found something in Seattle. A man named David Park died by suicide last year. He was married to one of the women in this network. His suicide note mentioned unbearable debts and failing everyone. But the detective I spoke to said David didn't have significant debts. His wife had been extracting money from him and his elderly mother for 2 years. The stress, the shame, the isolation from his family, it destroyed him. The room tilted. Helen grabbed my hand. Are you saying Vanessa wants Daniel to? No. I'm saying these women are professionals. They know how to extract money, destroy family relationships, and walk away clean. David Park was an extreme case, but the pattern is clear. Patricia slid a document across the table. Mia, I need to show you one more thing. Thomas recovered this from Daniel's email trash folder. It's dated August 20th, 2024. It was an email draft to me, never sent. I read subject. I need to tell you something, Mom. I don't know how to write this. I've started this email 10 times and deleted it every time, but I can't keep quiet anymore. Vanessa isn't who I thought she was. I found something on her laptop yesterday. She left it open while she was showering. There was a notification from a group chat. I clicked it. Mom, they talk about men about us like we're jobs targets. They share tactics on how to extract money, how to isolate us from our families, how to accelerate inheritance. I found more. Vanessa researched you and Dad before she even met me. Found Dad's obituary, your parents' estate information. She knew exactly how much money you had before our first date. I confronted her about it. She cried, said I was being paranoid that the chat was just her venting to friends about financial stress. She made me feel like I was crazy for questioning her. But Mom, I saw the messages. I saw the searches. This isn't paranoia, I'm scared. Not of her physically, but of what she knows. She has access to everything. Your social security number, your bank accounts. If I try to leave her and she gets vindictive, I'm going to divorce her. But I need to do it carefully. Document everything first. Protect you. Please don't give her any more money. Don't give me any more money until I can explain in person. I'll call you when we get back from Ben this weekend. I'll tell you everything. I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry I brought her into our lives. Daniel, the email was dated August 20th. The voicemail was August 15th. I looked up at Thomas. What happened? Why didn't he send it? Thomas pulled up more data. On August 21st, Daniel withdrew $12,000 from your account for IRS penalties. Patricia spoke quietly. He went back to her. Something changed his mind, or someone did. Helen squeezed my hand. She found out he knew. She threatened him. I looked at the email again. My son's words, his fear, his love. He tried to warn me, tried to protect me, but fear or shame or manipulation or all three had stopped him. And he'd gone back to being Vanessa's puppet. I stood up, walked to the window. Portland spread out below me, gray and rain-soaked and beautiful. I made a decision. I want to talk to him. Daniel. Alone, without Vanessa. Mia. I don't think Patricia started. I need to hear it from him. If there's any chance of getting my son back, I have to try. Patricia and Thomas exchanged a look. Okay, Patricia finally said, but we do this carefully, somewhere public, and Helen comes with you. Agreed. I pulled out my phone and texted Daniel. I want to talk. Just us. No Vanessa. Can you meet me at Stumptown tomorrow morning, 10:00 a.m., please? I watched the screen. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, she won't like that. I typed back, I don't care what Vanessa likes. This is between you and me. Your choice. Come alone or don't come at all. 30 agonizing minutes passed. Then okay, 10:00 a.m. tomorrow. I looked at Patricia Thomas and Helen. Tomorrow I said we get my son back. Saturday morning, December 14th, 9:45 a.m. I arrived at Stumptown Coffee 15 minutes early. The place was already busy. Portland. Saturday morning, crowd students with laptops, couples sharing pastries, the smell of fresh ground espresso and rain-soaked coats. I chose a table in the middle of the cafe, public enough to feel safe, quiet enough to talk. Helen was already there, sitting at a corner table with her laptop open, pretending to work. Our agreed signal, if I felt unsafe, I'd touch my left ear. She'd call 911 immediately. I ordered a coffee I didn't want. My hands were shaking too much to drink it anyway. At 10:03, Daniel walked in. I barely recognized him. He'd lost weight. His face was gaunt, dark circles under his eyes like bruises. His hair was unwashed, sticking up at odd angles. He wore a wrinkled flannel shirt and jeans that looked like he'd slept in them. This wasn't the put-together tech professional I knew. This was someone falling apart. He saw me stopped. For a moment, I thought he might turn around and leave. Then he walked over and sat down across from me. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." We sat in silence. The espresso machine hissed. Someone laughed at the counter. Normal Saturday sounds, but nothing about this felt normal. Daniel stared at his hands. "I'm sorry about the texts about Christmas, about everything. Daniel, I need you to tell me the truth. All of it. No more lies." He nodded but didn't look up. "What do you want to know? Let's start with the money. $82,000. Where did it really go?" Long pause. So long I thought he might not answer. Then quietly, some of it was real. Vanessa's student loans. Those were real. $20,000. I paid them off and the rest. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I have a gambling problem, Mom." The words hit like a physical blow. What it started after Dad died. His voice cracked. I couldn't handle it, the grief. I was drowning in it. And Vanessa. She had this friend whose boyfriend ran poker nights just for fun at first. $50 buy-ins, beer and cards, and feeling like one of the guys. He rubbed his face with both hands. I started winning. Not much, but enough to feel good. To feel like I was good at something. Dad was the beloved teacher. Everyone's favorite. I was just Daniel Bob Anderson's kid. But at that poker table, I mattered. Daniel. Then I started losing and I kept playing because I thought I could win it back. Just one more hand. One more night. I went to Chinook Winds Casino. Just once I told myself. His hands were shaking now, gripping his coffee cup so hard his knuckles went white. Once became twice, became every weekend. I lost God, Mom. I lost $73,000 in 2 years. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Where did you get 73,000 credit cards, maxed out my entire savings? Gone in money from you, the business investment. I lost it in one weekend at the casino. The car repair went to pay off a loan shark who was threatening to show up at my office. Tears started falling down his face. He didn't wipe them away. I wanted to tell you that voicemail in August I was going to confess everything. But you were in Seattle dealing with Aunt Mary's heart scare, and when you came back, I couldn't do it. I was so ashamed. I reached across the table and took his hand. It was cold, trembling. Daniel, why didn't you tell me about the gambling? I would have helped you real help treatment, because I didn't want to disappoint you more than I already had. His voice broke completely. Dad died disappointed in me. I couldn't bear for you to feel the same way. Your father was never disappointed. Yes, he was. Daniel pulled his hand away. That last month before hospice, he was so weak he could barely talk. But he asked me about money if I was in trouble, and I lied to him. Mom. I looked my dying father in the eyes and told him everything was fine. A sob tore out of him. He knew I was lying, I could see it in his face, but he was too weak to call me on it, too sick to fight. And then he died, and I never got to tell him the truth. I lied to my dying father. What kind of person does that? My heart broke. For him, for Rob, for all of us. A scared one, I said softly. A sick one. Addiction is a disease, Daniel. It doesn't make you a bad person. But I am bad. I stole from you. I let Vanessa. He stopped abruptly. Let Vanessa what? He looked up at me. His eyes were red, desperate, haunted. Mom, I need to show you something. He pulled out his phone, opened his email, showed me the screen. It was the draft, the unsent email from August that Thomas had found. You know about this? I asked. Your lawyer's investigator called me yesterday. Thomas, he said he'd found. It asked if I wanted to explain what happened, why I never sent it. Daniel took a shaky breath, set down his phone, and told me everything. I found her laptop on August 20th, Daniel began. She'd left it open on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. There was a notification, a message from someone named Victoria. He closed his eyes, remembering. I almost didn't look. I trusted her, but something about the notification. It said timeline updated and showed a $sign. I clicked it. What did you find? A group chat. 5 women, Vanessa and 4 others. They were talking about men, about us, like we were jobs assignments. He pulled up screenshots on his phone, showed me Victoria Ashford. Ladies, remember the timeline. 6 months to marriage, 12 months to first major extraction, 18 months to family isolation, 24 months to maximum yield. Don't deviate. Vanessa Portland target is at month 14. Family isolation is complete. Mother is compliant. Extracted 56 at K so far. Jessica C. impressive. My Seattle mark is slower. Only 40K at month 18. Madison PHX Mines getting suspicious. His sister keeps asking questions. Vanessa, cut the sister out. Tell him she's jealous of your happiness. Works every time. I felt sick reading it. There's more, Daniel said quietly. He scrolled. Brittany Den question for the group. How do you handle guilt? Sometimes I actually feel bad. Vanessa don't. These men have everything handed to them. Family, money, legacy. We're just redistributing wealth. Victoria Ashford. Exactly. They didn't earn it. Their parents did. Their grandparents did. We're just accelerating the inevitable inheritance. Inheritance acceleration, I whispered. Daniel nodded. I kept reading, going back through months of messages, and I found he swiped to another screenshot. Vanessa, March 12, 2019. Found a target. Daniel Anderson father just died. Teacher pension plus life insurance. Mother owns Victorian in Irvington worth $800K. Applause. Parents left estate. Rough estimate. 2 ml total accessible within 5 years. Victoria Ashford. Nice find. What's the approach? Vanessa Oid. His profile mentions family legacy and education. I'll play the fellow teacher's daughter angle. Shared values. He's grieving. Perfect timing. Daniel's voice was barely audible. She researched you and Dad before she ever messaged me. It was all planned. Oh, sweetheart. I confronted her that night, showed her what I'd found, and He laughed bitterly. She was so good, Mom. She cried, really cried. Said I was taking things out of context. That the chat was just her venting to friends about financial stress. That she'd exaggerated to sound tough, but none of it was real. Did you believe her? I wanted to. God, I wanted to. Because the alternative was that my entire marriage was a lie. That I'd let a con artist into our family. That I was a complete idiot. You're not an idiot. Yes, I am. Because I dug deeper, found more. She'd Googled Dad's obituary the day before she messaged me. She'd researched your parents' estate. She knew exactly how much money you had before our first date. He put his head in his hands. And when I showed her that evidence, she changed tactics, stopped crying, got cold, told me if I said anything to anyone, she'd destroy me. How she had screenshots, texts where I'd begged her to ask you for money, where I'd lied about what it was for. She said she'd go to the police, tell them I was financially abusing my elderly mother, that she'd tried to stop me, but I'd threatened her. His voice dropped to a whisper. She said you'd believe her over me, that I was a gambling addict and a liar, and she was the concerned wife trying to protect her mother-in-law. Who would you believe, Mom? Her or me, I would have believed you. Would you? He looked up at me. Honestly, if Vanessa had come to you in tears, saying I was stealing from you, gambling it away, threatening her when she tried to stop me, would you have believed me when I said she was lying? I wanted to say yes, but I wasn't sure. And Daniel could see it in my face. That's why I didn't send the email, he said. That's why I never followed up on the voicemail, because I was terrified of her, of losing you, of everyone knowing what a mess I'd made of my life. So you just stayed with her. I tried to play along, be the good husband, stop gambling. I actually did stop for a few months. Thought if I could just get clean, get stable, maybe I could figure out how to leave her safely. What happened? His face crumpled. I relapsed. Went to the casino one night when she was visiting her mother in Scottsdale. Lost $8,000. She found out, I don't know how, and she had me completely. She said if I tried to leave, she'd tell you about the relapse, prove I was an uncontrolled addict who couldn't be trusted. Daniel, and the worst part, Mom. Part of me still loved her, or thought I did. She knew exactly how to play me. One day, cold and threatening, the next day, loving and supportive. We're in this together, baby. It's us against the world. I was so confused. I didn't know which way was up. I squeezed his hand. That's abuse, sweetheart, psychological abuse. I know that now, but then I was just trying to survive. We sat in silence for a moment. The cafe sounds continued around us. Normal life, completely separate from our nightmare. Daniel, I said carefully, I need to ask you something. The money you asked for in the last few months after you knew about Vanessa, did you really need it? Or was she forcing you to ask? He closed his eyes. Both the $12,000 for IRS penalties. That was real. I'd gambled away money I should have paid in taxes, but Vanessa told me what to say to you, how to phrase it so you wouldn't ask questions. And the $3,000 for the car. My car is fine. That money went straight to Vanessa. She said we needed emergency funds in case we had to disappear quickly. Disappear from what from you? If you got suspicious, she had it all planned out. We'd move to Seattle or San Francisco, change our numbers, block you on everything, just vanish. The cruelty of it took my breath away. But you didn't disappear. No, because he pulled something from his jacket pocket, a USB drive. 2 weeks ago, I copied everything from her laptop, the group chat, financial records, the inheritance acceleration manual that Victoria Ashford created, target lists with names and estimated family wealth, everything. He slid the USB drive across the table to me. There are 12 women in the network, Mom, 47 victims across 8 states. They've stolen over $4 million from families like ours. My hand shook as I picked up the USB drive. Why are you giving this to me now? Daniel's eyes filled with tears again. Because yesterday Vanessa told me her timeline for you. She said by next Christmas we should have extracted another $100,000. Then we'd push for early inheritance, convince her to set up a living trust with you as trustee. Get legal access to everything before he couldn't finish before I die. She said it so casually, Mom, like she was planning a vacation. And I realized she's never going to stop. She's going to bleed you dry, and then she's going to leave me with nothing and move on to her next target because that's what she does. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. So I choose you. I choose honesty. I choose to do the right thing even though I'm terrified. I'll testify against her, against all of them, whatever it takes. I stood up, walked around the table, and hugged my son. He collapsed against me, sobbing like a child. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Shh. I know. "I know, sweetheart." Over his shoulder, I saw Helen. She was crying too, and I knew what I had to do. Monday morning, December 16th, Patricia Walsh's office. But this time, we weren't alone. Thomas Fletcher sat at the conference table with another person I didn't know. A woman in her early 40s, professional Navy suit, sharp, intelligent eyes. Mrs. Anderson Patricia said, "This is FBI Special Agent Jennifer Blake. She handles white-collar crime and organized fraud for the Portland field office." Agent Blake shook my hand firmly. "Mrs. Anderson, thank you for meeting with me. Thomas brought me some very interesting evidence." She gestured to a laptop where the contents of Daniel's USB drive were displayed. "What I'm looking at here is a federal crime RICO racketeer, Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It's usually used for mob cases, but it applies perfectly here. This is an organized criminal enterprise." She pulled up the group messages, 12 women operating across 8 states, coordinating their activities, sharing tactics, taking direction from a ringleader, this Victoria Ashford, and most importantly, engaging in wire fraud and interstate commerce crimes. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means they're using phones, internet, and crossing state lines to commit fraud. That makes it federal, and federal charges come with serious prison time." Agent Blake pulled up another screen. Victoria Ashford's manual, the Inheritance Acceleration System. "E," she read aloud. "This is literally a how-to guide for defrauding elderly parents. Target selection research methodology, relationship development timelines, extraction strategies, exit planning." She looked at me seriously. "Mrs. Anderson, we've actually had our eye on Victoria Ashford for 6 months. We knew she was running something, but we couldn't get concrete evidence. This USB drive from your son, this is everything we needed. What happens now?" "Now we move fast. We need your son to cooperate, fully testify, and we need him to wear a wire." Daniel, who was sitting next to me, spoke up. "A wire?" "Yes. You go back home, act normal. We fit you with a recording device. You try to get Vanessa talking about the scheme. Oregon is a one-party consent state. As long as you know you're being recorded, it's legal. She'll know something's wrong." Agent Blake smiled slightly. "Not if you play it right. Tell her your mother is reconsidering, that Mia feels bad about the fight and might be willing to transfer money back. Vanessa will get excited, greedy. People get careless when they think they're winning." I spoke up. Would I have to be involved? Yes. We'd set up a controlled meeting. Public place, coffee shop, restaurant. You, Daniel, and Vanessa all wired for sound. If we can get Vanessa to admit on tape that she targeted Daniel, researched your family, manipulated him into asking for money, that's conspiracy to commit fraud. Patricia leaned forward. "What's the timeline this week before Christmas? If Vanessa leaves Portland for the holidays, we lose our window. She could disappear, destroy evidence, warn the other women in the network." Thomas added, "We've identified 47 victims so far, but there could be more. Every day we wait, these women are extracting money from vulnerable families." I looked at Daniel. He was pale but determined. "I'll do it," he said. "Whatever you need." Agent Blake nodded approvingly. "Good. We'll need you to come to our field office tomorrow morning. We'll fit you with equipment, coach you on what to say. Mrs. Anderson will need you too. We'll script out the conversation so everyone knows their role." "What if something goes wrong?" I asked. "What if Vanessa gets violent? We'll have agents nearby undercover. The moment anyone feels unsafe, we move in. This is tightly controlled, Mrs. Anderson. Your safety is our priority." She pulled up a mugshot on her screen. Victoria Ashford, blonde, polished, cold eyes. This woman has destroyed families across the country. She's created a system for exploiting grief and manipulating vulnerable people. With your help, we can stop her. Stop all of them. I thought about the other 47 families, parents like me who'd lost their savings, Sons and daughters trapped like Daniel. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Tuesday morning, FBI Portland field office. The safe house was actually just a conference room in their building, but safe house sounded more dramatic. Daniel sat in a chair while a technician fitted him with equipment. A tiny microphone smaller than a shirt button clipped inside his collar. A transmitter the size of a quarter taped to his lower back. Wires so thin you couldn't see them unless you knew where to look. How does it feel? Agent Blake asked. Weird. Can you hear me? Okay. In the next room, Thomas gave a thumbs up through the one-way glass. Crystal clear. Agent Blake sat across from Daniel. Okay, let's walk through this. You go home tonight. Vanessa will ask where you've been. What do you say? That I went for a drive? Needed to think. Good. She'll be suspicious because you've been distant. That's actually helpful. She'll want to win you back. What's your opening? Daniel took a breath. I'll tell her I talked to Mom, that you feel bad about the fight, that you're reconsidering the money. Perfect. She'll want details. How much? When let her ask questions. Let her get greedy. The more she talks, the more she'll reveal. Thomas entered the room. Daniel, the key is to get her talking about the past. Remember when we first met? Remember how you helped me handle my mom? Let her brag. Narcissists love to brag about how clever they are. What if she suspects I'm recording? Then you get out. Say you need air. Walk away. We'll have agents watching the building. You're never truly alone in this. Agent Blake handed him a phone. This is a direct line to me. It's programmed to look like a food delivery app. If you feel unsafe at any point, you open the app and press the big red button. We'll be there in 90 seconds. Daniel pocketed the phone and the meeting with Mom and Vanessa. Thursday morning. We'll wire all three of you. The goal is to get Vanessa to admit she targeted you, researched your family, manipulated you. If she does that on tape, we've got her for conspiracy to commit fraud. I spoke up from where I'd been watching. What do I say? Agent Blake turned to me. You play the exhausted mother who just wants peace. You're tired of fighting. You've reconsidered. Maybe you were too harsh. You're willing to help them get back on their feet with some money. I have to offer her money. Not much. 50,000 tears. Maybe enough to make her think she's won. She'll get comfortable, confident. That's when people slip up. Patricia, who'd been reviewing documents, looked up, and legally this recording will hold up absolutely. Oregon one-party consent law. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, it's admissible evidence. Daniel and Mrs. Anderson will both know. That's more than enough. Thomas pulled up a map on his laptop. We're thinking barista on NW 23rd. Busy enough to be public, quiet enough to get clean audio. We'll have 4 agents posing as customers. Mrs. Morrison can be there too as backup. Helen, who'd insisted on coming, nodded firmly. I'm not letting Mia do this alone. Agent Blake stood. All right, Daniel, you go home tonight. Be normal, distant, but not hostile. Tomorrow night, you plant the seed about Mia reconsidering. Thursday morning, we spring the trap. Daniel stood too. The wires were hidden perfectly under his clothes. What happens after when she's arrested, she'll be processed, arraigned, held without bail, given the flight risk. We'll simultaneously execute warrants on the other 11 women in the network, coordinated arrests across all 8 states, and me. What happens to me? Agent Blake's voice softened. You'll testify at trial. Grand jury first, then the actual trial. In exchange for your full cooperation, the U.S. Attorney's Office is offering immunity. You won't be charged with any crimes related to the financial exploitation of your mother. I don't deserve immunity. I stole from her too. That's between you and your mother. Agent Blake said, but legally, you were a victim of Vanessa's manipulation. The gambling addiction, the coercion, the psychological abuse, that's mitigating. We want Vanessa and Victoria, not you. I walked over to Daniel, took his hands. You deserve a second chance to get help to get better. That's all I've ever wanted for you. He nodded, unable to speak. Agent Blake checked her watch. Okay, Daniel heads home in 1 hour. That gives Vanessa time to get suspicious, but not enough time to do anything drastic. Everyone clear on their roles. We all nodded. Then let's catch a criminal. Thursday morning, December 19th, 10:45 a.m. I arrived at Barista 15 minutes early, wore a simple cardigan and slacks, minimal makeup. I needed to look tired, defeated, a mother who'd given up fighting. The cafe was busy but not crowded. Perfect. Helen was already there. Corner table, laptop open, coffee cooling in front of her. She caught my eye, nodded slightly. Across the room, a young couple shared a muffin. The woman laughed at something on her phone. FBI agents. I could tell by the way the man's eyes constantly scanned the room. At the counter, a businessman in a suit ordered complicated coffee. Another agent. His jacket hung just right to hide the gun at his hip. I ordered herbal tea and sat at a table in the middle, pulled out my phone, pretended to check messages. The wire taped to my ribs felt huge, obvious, like everyone could see it. But Agent Blake had assured me it was invisible. At 10:58, Daniel walked in. He looked better than Saturday. He'd showered, shaved, wore clean clothes, but his eyes were still haunted. He sat across from me. We didn't speak, just exchanged a look that said everything. I'm scared. Me too. We can do this. At 11:04, Vanessa entered, and I understood in that moment why Daniel had fallen for her. She was beautiful, not just pretty, genuinely striking, perfect hair despite the Portland rain makeup, flawless, wearing a camel coat that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She walked like she owned the place, confident, commanding. She sat next to Daniel across from me. Mia. Her voice was neutral, not warm, not cold. Thank you for reaching out. Of course I kept my voice soft, tired. I've been doing a lot of thinking this week. Oh, the barista called out an order. Vanessa stood, got her latte, made them wait while she added the perfect amount of foam. Small power play. When she sat back down, I continued about family, about what really matters. And I realized I don't want to lose my son over money. Vanessa's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Interest. That's very mature of you, Mia. I was hurt. I continued following the script Agent Blake had given me. When Daniel asked for help and didn't pay it back when the texts happened, but I've been thinking. Maybe I wasn't clear about whether it was a gift or a loan. Exactly. Vanessa leaned forward slightly. That's what I told Daniel. You said help, not loan. We honestly thought it was a gift. I can see now how there might have been confusion. Vanessa's smile was warm now, genuine seeming. Mia, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. Family is everything, right, honey? Daniel nodded mutely. So Vanessa set down her latte. What are you thinking? I want to help you both. Really help set you up for success instead of these one-time transfers that cause stress. I'm listening. I was thinking maybe $50,000 as a fresh start. A gift this time. Really a gift. No strings, no expectations. I could see the greed flash across Vanessa's face just for a second before she controlled it. Mia, that's incredibly generous. Are you sure? I'm sure. You're my son's wife. That makes you family, and family takes care of each other. Vanessa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her skin was cold. Thank you. This means so much. We've been under so much stress. Financial stress is the worst. You know it affects everything. I can imagine. The medical procedure must have been expensive. Oh God, yes. Vanessa shook her head. The insurance company fought us on every little thing, but it's done now. Thank God. I'm completely recovered. Lie. Smooth as silk. And the business. The food cart. We're still working on that. Portland's permit process is a nightmare. But with this help from you, maybe we can finally move forward. Another lie. There was no food cart. There never had been. I took a sip of my tea, let the silence stretch. Then Vanessa, can I ask you something and please be honest with me? Of course. When did you and Daniel decide to get serious? I remember you moved so fast, married within a year of meeting. Vanessa smiled nostalgic. When you know right, baby Daniel made a non-committal sound. I remember seeing his profile on OkCupid. Vanessa continued warming to the topic. He mentioned his family's connection to education. I thought this is someone with values. My father was a teacher too. I thought your father was in construction, I said mildly. Vanessa's smile froze just for half a second. He did both early in his career. Anyway, the point is, I saw Daniel and thought, this is a good man from a good family. This was it, the moment. Vanessa, I need to be honest with you. I know about George Fletcher. The color drained from her face. Who your first husband, 71 years old Scottsdale, the contested, will the $180,000. The cafe sound seemed to fade. Vanessa's mask slipped just slightly. That was a private matter. I also know about the group chat, Ladies Who Lunch, Victoria Ashford, the 12 Women, the Inheritance Acceleration Manual. Now Vanessa stood her chair, scraped loudly. I don't know what I pulled out. My phone showed her the screenshots. Vanessa Portland target is at month 14. Family isolation is complete. Mother is compliant. Extracted $56K so far. Vanessa's face went through shock rage calculation all in 3 seconds. How did you, Daniel, gave it to me? Everything. The whole cloud back up. She whirled on Daniel, pure venom in her eyes. You bastard. You went through my private. I found it by accident. Daniel said, voice shaking but firm. And then I kept looking because I needed to know if my wife was a con artist. Con artist. People were staring now. I loved you. I gave up everything for you. You researched me. Daniel stood too. You found my dad's obituary before you even messaged me. You knew how much money my mom had before our first date. So what Vanessa's mask was completely gone now. You think you're some prize. You're a pathetic gambling addict who can't keep a job for more than 2 years. I saved you. You used me. I gave your sad little life purpose. She turned to me. And you sitting on $2 million of money you didn't even earn while people like me have to scrape for everything your parents earned it. Your husband earned it. You just sat there and inherited it. Her voice rose. The entire cafe was silent now watching. So yes, I took some, and I don't feel bad about it. You didn't need it. You have no one to leave it to but this pathetic excuse for a son. I just accelerated the inevitable. Inheritance acceleration, I said quietly. Vanessa realized too late. Her eyes went wide. She looked around, saw Helen with phone out, saw other people recording. This was a setup. Yes, I said calmly. It was Agent Jennifer Blake stood up from the businessman's table, showed her badge. Vanessa Taylor. I'm Special Agent Jennifer Blake, FBI. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, interstate racketeering, and elder financial abuse. 2 more agents materialized from the cafe crowd. Vanessa's face cycled through emotions. Shock, rage, fear, then cold calculation. She ran for the door, made it exactly 4 steps before an agent caught her arm. Get off me. This is entrapment. You can't use illegally Oregon one-party consent law. Agent Blake said calmly, clicking handcuffs on. Daniel and Mrs. Anderson both consented to the recording. You just confessed to organized fraud on tape. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. They walked her out. She was screaming the whole way. This is illegal. I want my lawyer. You're all gonna pay for this, Daniel. You weak piece. Of the door closed, cutting off her voice. The cafe erupted in whispers. Daniel collapsed back into his chair, put his head in his hands. I sat next to him, put my arm around him. He was shaking. "It's over," I whispered. "It's finally over." But I was wrong. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. The FBI took Vanessa to their field office in downtown Portland. I watched through the cafe window as they put her in an unmarked car, her hands cuffed behind her back, her perfect hair finally disheveled. She was still screaming. I couldn't hear the words through the glass, but I could see the rage on her face. Agent Blake stayed behind gathering witness statements from the cafe customers who'd watched the whole thing unfold. Daniel and I sat in silence. Helen brought us fresh coffee. Neither of us wanted. Mrs. Anderson, Agent Blake said sitting down across from us 20 minutes later. "That was textbook. You did exactly what we needed." "What happens now?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "Vanessa will be processed and arraigned. Given the flight risk and the severity of the charges, I'm confident the judge will deny bail. She'll be held at FD-CAC, that's the Federal Detention Center, until trial. How long until trial? 4 to 6 months typically, but we're fast-tracking this. The U.S. Attorney wants to make an example of the case. Organized elder fraud is a growing problem. This network, this inheritance acceleration system, it's bigger than we initially thought." She pulled out her tablet, showed us a map of the United States with red dots scattered across it. "We executed warrants this morning on all 12 women in the network. Simultaneous arrests in Seattle, Phoenix, Denver, Austin, Atlanta, Boston, Miami, and Chicago. Victoria Ashford was arrested at her home in Scottsdale. She's the ringleader, so she'll face the most serious charges." "How much did they steal total?" Daniel asked quietly. Agent Blake's face hardened. $4.3 million from 47 families that we've identified so far. But we think there are more victims who haven't come forward yet. People who are too ashamed to admit they were conned. I thought about those families. Parents like me who'd trusted their children. Sons and daughters like Daniel who'd been manipulated. "What can we do to help them?" I asked. "Tell your story. When this goes to trial, it'll be public. Media will cover it. Other victims will see they're not alone. That's powerful." She stood up. "Daniel, you'll need to meet with the U.S. Attorney's Office next week. They'll prepare you for grand jury testimony. Mrs. Anderson, you too. This is going to be a long process, but we're going to get justice." After she left, Daniel and I sat in the cafe for another hour. Neither of us wanted to go home. Home meant being alone with our thoughts. Finally, Helen spoke up. "Me and Daniel, both of you are coming to my house. I'm making dinner. No arguments." We went because what else were we going to do that night at Helen's house? Daniel finally broke down completely. We'd finished dinner. Helen's famous pot roast that she made when people needed comfort. We were sitting in her living room, the fireplace crackling, rain pattering against the windows. Daniel sat down his coffee cup. His hands were shaking. "I need to tell you something, Mom, about the gambling." "About how bad it really got." "Okay." He took a breath. "Last year in March, I went to Chinook Winds. I'd been clean for 2 months. 2 whole months without placing a bet. I was so proud of myself. But then work got stressful and Vanessa was pressuring me about money and I broke." His voice cracked. "I took $3,000 from our joint account. Told Vanessa it was for car insurance. Drove to the casino and I played blackjack for 14 straight hours." Helen and I stayed quiet, letting him talk. "By the time the sun came up, I'd lost everything, every penny. I sat in the parking lot and thought about driving off the road, just ending it because I couldn't face going home. Couldn't face admitting what I'd done again." Tears were streaming down his face now. "But I thought about you, Mom, about Dad, about what it would do to you if you lost me too. So I drove home. Told Vanessa I'd been in an accident, made up this whole story about hitting a deer, the car being totaled, the insurance covering it. She believed me, or pretended to. Oh, sweetheart. That's when she really got her hooks in. She said, "Baby, it's okay. Accidents happen, but we need to be smarter about money. Why don't you ask your mom to help us with a down payment on a new car? She'll want to help." And I did because it was easier than telling the truth. He wiped his face with his hands. Every time I asked you for money after that, it was the same. Vanessa would find out about the gambling, threaten to tell you, then suggest I ask you for help with something else. Medical bills, business investment tax penalties, all lies. And I went along with every single one because I was too ashamed to admit the truth. "Daniel, that's financial abuse. She was exploiting your addiction." But I let her. That's the thing, Mom. I made the choice every time. I could have told you the truth, could have asked for help with rehab instead of money, but I chose the easy way, the coward's way. I moved to sit next to him on the couch, took his hand. "You're not a coward. You're sick. Addiction is a disease, not a moral failing. And you're getting help now. That takes more courage than you know. Do I deserve help after what I did to you? Yes, you're my son. I love you. That hasn't changed. How can you forgive me so easily?" I thought about that. About Rob, about the $82,000, about all the lies. "It's not easy," I said honestly. "I'm hurt. Deeply hurt. And forgiveness isn't going to happen overnight. But Daniel, you tried to warn me. You drafted that email, you left that voicemail, you were fighting her even when you were trapped. But I never sent the email. I never followed up on the voicemail. No, but you're here now. You gave the FBI everything they needed. You wore a wire even though you were terrified. You chose to do the right thing in the end. That matters." Helen spoke up from her chair. "Daniel, can I tell you something about my nephew Tommy?" Daniel looked up. "I didn't know you had a nephew." Had past tense. Helen's voice was sad. "Tommy was addicted to oxycodone. Started with a legitimate prescription after a car accident. Ended with him stealing from everyone who loved him. His parents, his siblings, me." She set down her wine glass. "I gave him $10,000 over 2 years, always for emergencies that turned out to be lies. And I enabled him because I loved him, because I thought if I just helped one more time, he'd get better." "What happened to him?" "He overdosed 4 years ago alone in a motel room, and you know what haunts me? His last text to me was asking for $300 for rent. I said no. I was finally setting boundaries, and he died that night." Daniel's face was stricken. "Helen, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Learn from it. Tommy died because his addiction won. You're still here because you're fighting. You're getting help. You're being honest. That's the difference between life and death for addicts." She leaned forward. "So yes, Daniel, you deserve help. You deserve forgiveness. And you deserve a second chance. Don't waste it." 3 weeks later, January 8th, 2025, the federal courthouse in downtown Portland was an imposing building, all concrete and glass and security checkpoints that made airports look casual. Daniel and I went through metal detectors, had our bags searched, were escorted to a waiting room on the 4th floor. Assistant U.S. Attorney Linda Martinez met us there. She was in her 50s, wearing a no-nonsense gray suit, carrying a briefcase that looked like it weighed 20 lb. "Mrs. Anderson Daniel, thank you for coming. The grand jury is ready for you." She walked us through the process. Grand jury was different from a trial. No defense attorneys present, just 23 citizens hearing evidence and deciding if there was enough to indict. "Daniel, you'll go first," Linda said. "I'll ask you questions about the timeline, how you met Vanessa when you discovered the group chat, the money that was taken. Just tell the truth. What if they don't believe me? They will. We have the evidence to back up everything you say. The USB drive the recordings from the cafe bank statements. This is as solid as cases get." She turned to me. "Mrs. Anderson, you'll testify after Daniel. I'll ask about the money you gave him, whether you intended it as gifts or loans, how you felt when you discovered the deception. Again, just honesty. Will Vanessa be there? No. The defendant doesn't attend grand jury proceedings. This is just about establishing probable cause for indictment. Daniel went in first. I sat in the waiting room for 45 minutes, my stomach in knots. When he came out, he looked exhausted but relieved. "How was it?" I asked. "Easier than I thought." They asked good questions, fair questions. One woman on the jury told me I was brave for coming forward. That made me, his voice caught. That made me feel like maybe I'm not completely worthless. "You're not worthless, sweetheart. Not even close." Then it was my turn. The grand jury room was smaller than I expected. 23 people sat in tiered rows like a small amphitheater. They ranged in age from 20s to 70s. Diverse faces, regular people. I sat in the witness chair, raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth. Linda Martinez stood at a podium. "Mrs. Anderson, can you tell the grand jury about your relationship with your son Daniel?" I did. Talked about his childhood, about Rob, about how close we'd been. When did that relationship change? After my husband died, Daniel started asking for money. At first it seemed reasonable. Car repairs, medical bills, things that happen to everyone. "Did you intend those transfers as gifts or loans?" I paused. This was the crucial question. I intended them as help. I assumed he would pay them back when he could, but I never explicitly said this is a loan. I trusted him. He was my son. "When did you realize something was wrong?" I told them about the Christmas text, about the $82,000, about the voicemail Daniel had left that I'd never heard. One juror, a woman in her 60s, raised her hand. "Miss Martinez, can I ask a question?" "Of course." The woman looked at me. "Mrs. Anderson, do you blame your son for what happened?" I thought carefully. "I blame the addiction. I blame Vanessa for exploiting that addiction. But do I blame Daniel? No. He was a victim too. He tried to warn me. He tried to leave her. She manipulated him into staying." Another juror spoke up, a younger man, maybe 30s. "But he still took your money. He still lied. Why are you defending him?" Fair question. "Because he's my son. And because addiction makes people do things they would never do otherwise." My husband was a teacher for 33 years. He always said, "Judge people by their best selves, not their worst moments." Daniel at his worst stole from me. Daniel at his best is trying to make it right. The young man nodded slowly. Linda continued with more questions about the group chat, the arrest, how I felt watching Vanessa be taken away. Relieved, I said, "And sad that it had to come to this. Sad for all the families she's hurt." After 30 minutes, Linda said, "No further questions. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson." I left the room. Daniel was waiting. "How'd it go?" I think okay. They seemed sympathetic. We waited another hour. Then Linda came out smiling. The grand jury voted to indict all 12 women. Multiple counts of wire fraud conspiracy to commit fraud and racketeering. Victoria Ashford also got hit with money laundering charges. What does that mean? It means we're going to trial and we're going to win. April 15th, 2025, 4 months later, the trial of United States versus Victoria Ashford et al. Began on a rainy Monday morning. I sat in the gallery every day, Daniel beside me on my left, Helen on my right. The courtroom was packed media in the back rows, other victims and their families scattered throughout. FBI agents, 12 defendants sat at 4 different tables each with their own attorney. Vanessa was at the second table wearing a conservative navy suit, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup, playing the part of wrongly accused woman. She never looked at Daniel or me, not once. The judge, Honorable Margaret Rodriguez, was a stern woman in her 60s, with gray hair and sharp eyes. "All rise," the bailiff called. We stood. The United States District Court for the District of Oregon is now in session. The Honorable Margaret Rodriguez presiding. Judge Rodriguez sat. We sat. Good morning. We're here for the matter of United States versus Victoria Ashford, and 11 co-defendants. Are all parties ready? The lead prosecutor stood. The United States is ready, Your Honor. 12 defense attorneys stood in sequence. Defense is ready, Your Honor. Then let's begin with opening statements. Ms. Martinez. Assistant U.S. Attorney Linda Martinez stood. Walked to the jury box. 12 jurors, 7 women, 5 men, ages ranging from 20s to 60s. They looked serious, ready. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Linda began. This case is about organized crime, not the kind you see in movies with guns and violence, but crime nonetheless. Systematic, calculated, cruel crime that destroys families. She walked them through it. The network of 12 women, the 47 identified victims, the 4.3 million stolen. These women didn't stumble into fraud. They planned it. They coordinated it. They shared tactics and celebrated their victories like it was a game. And when their victims caught on, they threatened them, gaslit them, made them feel crazy for questioning where their own money went. She pointed to Victoria Ashford. This woman, Victoria Ashford, created a manual, a literal step-by-step guide to identifying wealthy targets, manipulating them, and extracting their family's assets. She distributed it to her network. She took a percentage of every dollar they stole. She ran this operation like a business. Then she pointed to Vanessa. And this woman, Vanessa Taylor, is responsible for stealing over $180,000 from the Anderson family. She targeted Daniel Anderson specifically because she'd researched his family's wealth. She knew his father had just died. She knew his mother had inherited money. She planned everything before she even met him. Linda pulled out an exhibit, projected it on the screen. It was Vanessa's first "OK Sid" message to Daniel. Hi, I noticed in your profile you mentioned your family's connection to education. My father was a teacher too. I'd love to hear more about your family's legacy. This message was sent on March 12, 2019. The day before, Vanessa had Googled Robert Anderson Portland teacher obituary. She'd researched the family's finances. She knew what she was doing. The jury members looked disgusted. Linda continued for 20 more minutes, laying out the timeline, the evidence, the pattern. When she finished the defense, attorneys took their turns. Vanessa's lawyer was Robert Drake. Expensive suit, silver hair, slick smile. Ladies and gentlemen, my client is not a criminal. She's a woman who fell in love with the wrong man. Daniel Anderson is a gambling addict who stole from his elderly mother to feed his addiction. And when he got caught, he made Vanessa the scapegoat. He pulled out exhibits. The evidence will show that every dollar Vanessa Taylor received was either a gift freely given by Mrs. Anderson or payment for legitimate debts. Student loans, real. Medical procedures, real. Nothing illegal. The prosecution will paint my client as a mastermind, but the truth is simpler and sadder. She's a young woman who trusted an addict who stood by him when he spiraled, who's now being punished for his crimes. I watched Daniel's face during this. He looked like he'd been slapped, but he stayed quiet. We'd been coached. No reactions, no outbursts. The trial would last 3 weeks. Day 3. FBI agent Jennifer Blake. Agent Blake walked the jury through the investigation. The group chat messages, the financial records, the pattern across 8 states. This wasn't random. She testified. This was organized, systematic. The women had code names for their victims' targets. They shared tactics, warned each other about legal risks. They even had a name for it. Inheritance acceleration. She projected the group chat on screen. Vanessa Portland guy moved $25K yesterday. Easy mark. Mother's a bleeding heart. Mention his dead dad and she'll give you anything. Jessica C. Nice. My Seattle tech bro just proposed. Planning to drain the joint account before the wedding. Madison PHX. How do you handle suspicious siblings? Vanessa Isolate. Tell your guy his sister is jealous of his happiness. Works every time. One juror, an older woman, put her hand over her mouth in shock. The defense attorney cross-examined. Agent Blake, isn't it true these messages could be interpreted as just venting between friends? Exaggeration. No, sir, not when they correlate exactly with financial transactions we can track. When Vanessa said she moved $25K yesterday, we have bank records showing a $25,000 transfer from Mrs. Anderson to Daniel Anderson that exact day. But the transfer was from Mrs. Anderson. My client didn't force anyone. Your client coached Daniel Anderson on what to say to his mother. She researched the family's finances before meeting him. She targeted him deliberately. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. Day 5. Other victims testify an elderly man from Seattle. Richard Park, brother of David Park, the man who'd committed suicide. My brother was a good man, Richard said, his voice shaking. A software engineer made good money, but after he married Jessica Lynn, he changed, stopped calling family, stopped attending holidays. Always had some excuse. What happened to David? Linda asked gently. He killed himself, left a note saying he'd failed everyone, that he had unbearable debts. But when we went through his finances after he died, there were no major debts, just transfers. Hundreds of thousands of dollars transferred to accounts we couldn't trace. Did you ever meet Jessica once at the wedding? She was charming, perfect. Wouldn't let David out of her sight. We thought it was love. It wasn't. Richard broke down crying. The jury looked shaken. Another victim, Margaret Williams from Phoenix. Her son had married Madison Hayes. I gave them $300,000 over 4 years, Margaret testified, for a business that never existed for medical emergencies, that never happened for investment opportunities, that were fabrications. Did you intend this as a gift or loan? Linda asked. Loan, always loan. I kept asking when they'd pay me back. Madison would cry, say they were trying, that my son was working so hard that I should be proud of him instead of hounding them for money. She made me feel like a monster for asking about my own money. What happened when you finally said no more? They disappeared, changed their numbers, blocked me on everything. I haven't spoken to my son in 2 years. Don't know where he lives, if he's alive, nothing. Margaret wiped her eyes. Madison didn't just take my money. She took my son. Day 8. Daniel's testimony. This was the day I'd been dreading. Daniel walked to the witness stand in a gray suit Helen had helped him pick out. He'd been sober for 5 months now in Gamblers Anonymous in therapy. He looked healthier than he had in years, but I could see him shaking as he raised his right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Linda approached him gently. Daniel, can you tell the jury how you met Vanessa Taylor? Okay, Cupid, March 2019. She messaged me first. What did she say? She asked about my family. I'd mentioned in my profile that my dad was a teacher. She said her dad was too, that we had shared values. Did you later discover that was a lie? Yes. Her father worked in construction. He was never a teacher. What else did she lie about? Daniel's voice was steady, but quiet. Most things. She said she was estranged from her family, that her mother had abandoned her, that she'd worked 3 jobs to put herself through college. None of it was true. Her parents are alive and well in Scottsdale. They paid for her college. How did you discover the truth? I found her laptop. August 2024. It was open. I saw messages in a group chat. What did these messages say? Daniel pulled out a tissue, wiped his eyes. They talked about men like we were targets' jobs. She'd written that I was an easy mark because I was grieving my father, that my mother was sitting on $2 million. That if she played it right, she could extract at least $500,000. His voice broke. The jury needs to hear this. Daniel, Linda said kindly. What happened when you confronted her? She cried. said I was taking things out of context that she'd been venting to friends. She made me feel crazy for questioning her. But you found more evidence. Yes. She'd Googled my dad's obituary before she met me. She'd researched my family's estate. She knew exactly how much money we had before our first date. What did you do with this information? I tried to tell my mother. I called her, left a voicemail, drafted an email, but I never followed through. Why not? Because Vanessa threatened me. She said if I told anyone, she'd go to the police, say I was financially abusing my elderly mother, that she'd tried to stop me, but I'd threatened her. She had screenshots of texts where I'd asked my mom for money. She said no one would believe a gambling addict over her. Did you believe her? Daniel looked at me for the first time, tears streaming down his face. Yes, because I was guilty. I did steal from my mother. Even if Vanessa coached me, I made the choice to do it every time. Daniel, did you know about Vanessa's first marriage when you married her? No. She told me she'd never been married before. Did you know she'd inherited money from an elderly man? No. Did you know about the network of women, the manual, the coordination? Not until I found the laptop. Linda nodded. No further questions. Robert Drake stood for cross-examination. His smile was sharp. Mr. Anderson, you have a gambling problem, don't you? Yes, sir. How much money have you lost gambling? Approximately $73,000 over 22 years. And where did that money come from? Credit card savings. And money I got from my mother under false pretenses. Money you lied to get. Yes, sir. You told your mother you needed money for medical bills that didn't exist, didn't you? Yes, sir. Drake let the yeses pile up, making Daniel look like the real criminal. You told her you needed money for business opportunities that were complete fabrications. Yes, sir. For tax penalties that were actually gambling debts. Yes, sir. Mr. Anderson, isn't it convenient that you're blaming all of this on my client, the gambling addict pointing fingers at his wife to save himself? Daniel looked at the jury. I'm not trying to save myself, sir. I'm admitting everything I did wrong. I lied. I stole. I hurt my mother terribly. I should face consequences for that. Then why aren't you being charged? Because the U.S. Attorney's Office determined that I was a victim of Vanessa's manipulation, the gambling addiction, the psychological abuse, the coercion. That's documented. Documented by whom? By you, by your mother, who has every reason to lie to protect you. By the evidence, the group chat, the searches Vanessa did before meeting me, the manual on how to target and manipulate vulnerable people. I was one of 47 victims, sir. Are all of us lying? Drake's jaw tightened. No further questions, but I could see it in the jury's faces. They believed Daniel. I walked to the witness stand with my heart pounding. I'd practiced with Linda for hours, but actually sitting there with the jury watching, with Vanessa watching, was different. Linda guided me through the basics. My background, Rob's death, my relationship with Daniel. Mrs. Anderson, when Daniel asked you for money, did you intend it as a gift or a loan? I looked at the jury. I intended it as help. I'm his mother. When your child asks for help, you give it. I assumed he would pay it back when he could, but I never made that explicit. I trusted him. When did that trust break? When he sent me a text message saying, I didn't matter that Vanessa's family actually wanted them for Christmas, that I should enjoy my empty house. My voice cracked. I took a breath. That's when I knew something was very wrong. And I started looking at the financial records. That's when I saw the pattern. $82,000 in 18 months. How did that make you feel? Betrayed, hurt, but also worried because this wasn't the son I raised? Something had changed him. When did you learn about Vanessa's role? When my attorney hired a private investigator, we discovered the group chat, the network, the targeting. Linda showed the jury my bank statements, the $82,000 highlighted in yellow. Mrs. Anderson, this represents less than 4% of your total assets. Why pursue this case? Important question. Linda and I had prepared for it. Because it's not about the money, it's about trust family. Vanessa didn't just take my money, she took my son. She isolated him from me, manipulated him, exploited his grief over losing his father. That's what I can't forgive. Do you forgive Daniel? I looked at my son. He was crying silently. I'm working on it. Forgiveness takes time. He hurt me, but I understand now that he was struggling with addiction, with manipulation. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it helps me understand why. Do you forgive Vanessa Taylor? I looked at Vanessa for the first time since the trial began. Her face was impassive, showing nothing. No, because she's not sorry. She targeted my son deliberately. She researched our family before meeting him. She destroyed our relationship for money. That's not someone who deserves forgiveness. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Robert Drake's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Anderson, you have approximately $2.1 million in assets. Correct? Yes. The $82,000 your son asked for represents less than 4% of your wealth. The percentage doesn't matter. But it does matter, doesn't it? This was hardly a financial hardship for you. It's not about the hardship, it's about the lying. Mrs. Anderson, did you ever explicitly tell Daniel the money was a loan and not a gift? I paused. This was the weak point in our case, not in those exact words. So you gave money freely to your son, never specified it was a loan, never asked him to sign promissory notes, never set repayment terms, and now you're claiming it was theft because you're angry about a text message. No, that's not Mrs. Anderson. Isn't it true that you're a wealthy woman who's embarrassed that her son has a gambling problem, and you're using my client as a scapegoat rather than admitting your son's addiction is the real issue here? Linda objected. Argumentative, Your Honor. Sustained. Move on, Mr. Dia Drake. But the seed was planted. I could see some jurors looking uncertain. Drake smiled slightly. No further questions. I left the stand feeling like I'd failed, but Linda squeezed my hand as I passed. You did great, she whispered. Linda Martinez stood before the jury one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 3 weeks, you've heard overwhelming evidence of an organized criminal enterprise. 12 women working together to defraud vulnerable families, $4.3 million in stolen, 47 victims. She pulled up the group chat one more time. This isn't ambiguous. This isn't a misunderstanding. These women planned, coordinated, and executed a systematic scheme to steal from people who trusted them. She pointed to Victoria Ashford. This woman created the blueprint, the Inheritance Acceleration Manual. She recruited the others. She took a cut of every dollar stolen. Then to Vanessa, and this woman executed that blueprint perfectly. She researched the Anderson family, targeted Daniel at his most vulnerable, manipulated him into stealing from his own mother. And when caught, she showed no remorse, only anger that her scheme was exposed. Linda's voice rose. Daniel Anderson is not blameless. He lied, he stole, but he's also a victim of addiction, yes, but also of Vanessa's deliberate, calculated manipulation. She found a grieving man and exploited him. That's not love. That's predatory behavior. She walked back to the jury box. The evidence is clear. The testimony is consistent. These women are guilty. Hold them accountable. Send a message that elder fraud will not be tolerated, that families deserve protection from predators. She sat down. Robert Drake stood, made his final argument. Ladies and gentlemen, the government wants you to believe my client is a criminal mastermind. But where's the evidence? Text messages that could be interpreted multiple ways, Google searches that prove nothing. A troubled marriage to a gambling addict. He gestured to Vanessa. My client made mistakes. She stayed with an addict longer than she should have. She trusted him when he said the money from his mother was freely given. But that doesn't make her a criminal. The prosecution talks about 47 victims. But how many of those victims gave money freely to their children? How many enabled addiction? How many are now embarrassed and looking for someone to blame? I felt anger rising, but I stayed still. Vanessa Taylor is not guilty of fraud. She's guilty of loving the wrong man. Don't convict her for that. He sat. Judge Rodriguez addressed the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard all the evidence. You'll now deliberate. Remember, the burden of proof is on the government. Guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The jury filed out. We waited. The jury sent a note. They had a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. The jury entered. I tried to read their faces. Impossible. As the jury reached a verdict, Judge Rodriguez asked. The foreman stood. A middle-aged man in a plaid shirt. We have your honor. On the count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, how do you find the defendant Victoria Ashford guilty? On the count of racketeering guilty, money laundering guilty, 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 guilty. Victoria Ashford's face remained blank. The judge went through all 12 defendants. When they got to Vanessa, I held my breath. On the count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, how do you find the defendant Vanessa Taylor guilty? Wire fraud guilty, interstate frauded guilty, elder financial abuse, guilty, 10 counts total, all guilty. Vanessa's face finally cracked, just slightly, fear in her eyes. Daniel grabbed my hand. Judge Rodriguez banged her gavel. The defendants are remanded to custody pending sentencing. Court is adjourned. It was over. We'd won. The courtroom was quieter for sentencing. Just the defendants, their families, and a few victims who wanted to see justice served. Judge Rodriguez had reviewed all the pre-sentence reports, the victims' impact statements, the defendants' pleas for leniency. She started with Victoria Ashford. Ms. Ashford, you are 48 years old. You have an MBA from Stanford. You worked in investment banking. You had every advantage. And you chose to use your intelligence to create a criminal enterprise that destroyed families across this country. Victoria stood her lawyer beside her. I've read your statement claiming you were evening the playing field between the wealthy and the poor, that you were redistributing inherited wealth. Let me be clear, you're not Robin Hood. You're a thief, and a particularly cruel one. Judge Rodriguez looked at her notes. You created a manual teaching other women how to exploit vulnerable people. You took a percentage of every dollar they stole. You showed no remorse at trial. In your statement, you said your only regret was getting caught. I'm sentencing you to 20 years in federal prison. With credit for time served, you'll be eligible for parole in 17 years. I hope you use that time to develop a conscience. The gavel came down. 20 years. Victoria would be 68 when she got out. The other women received sentences ranging from 8 to 15 years depending on how much they'd stolen and how many victims they'd hurt. Finally, Vanessa. Judge Rodriguez looked at her for a long moment. Miss Taylor, you're 35 years old. You have no prior criminal record. You came from a middle-class family, had opportunities. Under different circumstances, I might show leniency. Vanessa sat up, slightly hope flickering. But the evidence shows a pattern of calculated cruelty. This isn't your first time exploiting an elderly person. Your first husband was 71. His children contested his will because of your influence. You settled that case, took the money, and moved on to your next target. The hope died in Vanessa's eyes. You researched the Anderson family before meeting Daniel. You targeted him specifically because his father had just died and his mother had money. You manipulated a grieving man with an addiction. You coached him to lie to his own mother. And when confronted, you showed no remorse, only anger. Judge Rodriguez picked up a piece of paper. I have a victim impact statement from Mrs. Mia Anderson. With the court's permission, I'd like to read part of it. She cleared her throat. Mrs. Anderson writes, Vanessa didn't just take my money. She took my ability to trust my son. She took years of our relationship that we can never get back. She exploited my late husband's death. She turned my love for my child into a weapon against me. The money can be replaced. The trust cannot. Judge Rodriguez sat down the paper. Miss Taylor, I'm sentencing you to 12 years in federal prison. With good behavior, you'll be eligible for parole in 8 years. I hope you use that time to understand the damage you've caused, to develop empathy, to become someone who contributes to society instead of destroying families. The gavel came down 12 years. Vanessa would be 47 when she got out. She turned to look at Daniel. Then finally, for the first time since the trial began, her eyes were full of rage, pure, undiluted hatred. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read her lips. You'll regret this. Then the marshals took her away. December 2025. I'm sitting on my front porch watching the first snow of the season fall on Portland. It's rare to get snow here, but when it comes, it transforms everything into something magical. A lot has changed in a year. Daniel is living in Seattle now. He moved there 6 months ago for a fresh start. He's working as a junior accountant at a small firm. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. He's been sober from gambling for 17 months, goes to GA meetings 4 times a week, sees a therapist twice a week. He's doing the work. Last month, he sent me a check for $1,000, with a note first payment, 81 more to go. I love you, Mom. I cried when I got it. Not because I need the money, because it means he's taking responsibility. Our relationship is healing slowly. We talk every Sunday, video calls. He tells me about his week, his job, his meetings, the new friends he's made in recovery. I tell him about my life, the changes I've made, because I've changed too. I'm teaching creative writing at Portland Community College. Now just one class, but I love it. Helping students find their voices telling their stories. I volunteer at a nonprofit called Elder Abuse Prevention Network. I use my story to help other families recognize the warning signs, teach them about financial exploitation, give them hope that they can fight back. The FBI recovered $1.8 million from the network. They're distributing it to victims based on documented losses. I'll get back about $47,000 of the $82,000 I lost. I donated my portion to the nonprofit. It felt right. I've started dating again. His name is Frank Bennett. He's a retired high school English teacher, widower, 68 years old. We met at Powell's Books, both reaching for the same Mary Oliver poetry collection. We have coffee once a week, sometimes dinner, sometimes we just walk through Washington Park and talk about books and life and loss. It's nice, comfortable, no rush, no pressure. My house feels different now, lighter. I redecorated Daniel's old room into an art studio. I paint watercolors badly but happily. Portland rain scenes mostly. I keep Daniel's letters in a drawer. He writes once a month. Real letters handwritten telling me about his recovery, his struggles, his small victories. His last letter mentioned a woman. Riley they met at a GA meeting. She's been sober for 3 years, works as a social worker. I want you to meet her mom, he wrote. Maybe at Thanksgiving, only if you're ready. No pressure. I wrote back yesterday. I'd love to meet her, but let's do it in Seattle. I want to see your new life. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. I meant it. I am proud of his courage, his honesty, his determination to be better. This morning, I got a letter, not from Daniel, from Vanessa Federal Correctional Institution, Dublin, California. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. I read it once, folded. It put it in the drawer with Daniel's letters. It said, "Mia, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to write it. Prison gives you time. Too much time to think about who you were, what you did. You were right about everything. I targeted Daniel. I researched your family. I manipulated him. I told myself I was just taking from people who had too much, that it wasn't really wrong because you didn't earn the money anyway. But that was a lie I told myself to justify being cruel. I'm taking classes here working toward an associate's degree in social work. Ironic, I know. I've also signed up for the victim restitution program. 25% of my prison wages will go to the families I hurt. It's not enough. It will never be enough. I'm not asking for anything. Not forgiveness, not a response, not even understanding. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I took from you. Not just money, trust, peace of mind, your relationship with your son. Those things can't be paid back, but I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't take them in the first place. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it's not. Either way, I'm sorry, Vanessa. I don't know if I believe her. Prison conversions are easy. Real change is hard. But I also know that people can change. Daniel is proof of that. Maybe Vanessa can too. Maybe. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. Tonight, Helen is coming over for dinner. We're making Irish stew together. The recipe my mother taught me 60 years ago. Daniel is flying down for Christmas, bringing Riley. They'll stay in a hotel, but we'll have Christmas dinner here. Just the four of us. Frank will join us too if he wants. I invited him. He said he'd think about it. My house will be full again with laughter and stories and people who choose to be here, not out of obligation, but because they want to. That's the thing I've learned this year. Family isn't just blood, it's choice. Daniel chose to get help to tell the truth, to make amends. I chose to forgive him. Not all at once, not perfectly, but steadily. We're both choosing to rebuild what was broken, and that's enough. My phone buzzes. A text from Daniel. Just landed in Seattle. Riley says, "Hi, she's nervous about meeting you. I told her you're going to love her. See you Christmas Eve, Mom. I love you." I smile. Type back. "I'm sure I will love her. Safe travels, sweetheart. I love you too." I set down my phone and look out at the snow. The Victorian house my parents bought in 1982. The home where I raised Daniel, where Rob died, where I almost lost everything. But I didn't lose everything. I lost money, yes. I lost 2 years of trust. But I found something too. Strength, boundaries, the courage to say no. The wisdom to know when to say yes. I found myself again, and that's worth more than any amount of money. The snow is falling harder now, covering the street, the houses, the cars, making everything clean and new. Tomorrow will be better than today, and the day after that, better still. That's enough.